Have you ever wondered how God takes the ordinary and turns it into the extraordinary? How he calls those in humble places and uses them to do miraculous things? The story of Elisha is one of faith, obedience, and divine power. It's a story of a man who left the comfort of his daily routine to follow a call so great that it changed not only his life, but the lives of countless others. Elisha's life reminds us that when we fully surrender to God, his power flows through us in ways we could never imagine. From the fields of Israel to the chariots of heaven, Elisha's journey is a powerful testimony of what it means to walk in step with God. The story of Elisha begins in a simple and humble setting. He was a farmer, a man of the soil, tending his fields when destiny came calling. The prophet Elijah, weary from his own journey, was instructed by God to anoint Elisha as his successor. Elijah found him plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, a sign of his family's wealth and hard work. But God had greater plans for Elisha than the fields of Shaphat. Elijah walked up to him and cast his mantle, a symbol of prophetic authority, upon Elisha's shoulders. Without hesitation, Elisha understood the weight of this moment. It wasn't just a call to follow a man, but a call to follow God. What about us? When God calls, are we willing to leave behind the familiar to step into his purpose? Elisha's call reminds us that following God often requires sacrifice, but the reward is far greater than what we leave behind. In burning his plow, Elisha demonstrated something profound. He wasn't holding on to his past life as a safety net. He was all in for God's mission. And this was just the beginning of Elisha's remarkable journey. A journey that would lead him to ask for a double portion of Elijah's spirit and witness God's power in ways no one could imagine. Elisha walked closely with Elijah, serving him faithfully as a disciple. But the time came when Elijah was to be taken up to heaven, and the mantle of leadership was about to pass fully to Elisha. As they traveled together, Elijah asked Elisha a simple yet profound question. "Ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you." Elisha, bold in faith and vision, made a daring request. "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Elijah responded with wisdom, saying, "You have asked a difficult thing, yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not." They continued walking and talking when suddenly the heavens broke open. A chariot of fire, drawn by fiery horses, descended between them, sweeping Elijah up into the whirlwind. And with this double portion of Elijah's spirit, Elisha began a ministry marked by extraordinary miracles, each one revealing the God who provides, heals, and restores. These were not just acts of wonder, but signs of God's care for his people, reminders that he is always present in their struggles and needs. The people of Jericho came to Elisha with a dire problem. Their water was contaminated, causing illness and unfruitfulness in the land. Elisha asked for a bowl of salt, a simple yet symbolic request. He threw the salt into the spring and declared, "This is what the Lord says, I have healed this water. Never again will it cause death or make the land unproductive." A widow came to Elisha in despair, saying her late husband's creditor was coming to take her 2 sons as slaves. She had nothing left, no money, no food, just a small jar of oil. Elisha instructed her to borrow empty jars from her neighbors and to pour the little oil she had into them. She obeyed, and as she poured, the oil multiplied, filling every single jar. This miracle shows us that even when we feel we have nothing, God can take the little we offer and multiply it beyond measure. His provision knows no limits. A wealthy Shunammite woman, who had shown great kindness to Elisha, was blessed with a son after years of longing. But tragedy struck when the boy suddenly fell ill and died. In her grief, the woman sought out Elisha. He came to her home, prayed to the Lord, and stretched himself over the child. Through his persistent faith, the boy's life was restored. This miracle points to God's power over life and death. Even in our darkest moments, when all hope seems lost, God is able to bring restoration. Naaman, a commander in the Syrian army, was suffering from leprosy. He came to Elisha seeking healing. Elisha instructed him to wash 7 times in the Jordan River. At first, Naaman was insulted. He expected a grand display of healing, not a simple act of obedience. But when he finally humbled himself and followed Elisha's instructions, his skin was completely restored, as smooth as a child's. Sometimes, God's miracles come through simple acts of faith. Naaman's healing shows us that obedience often unlocks the blessings we seek. Each of these miracles reveals a deeper truth. God is a provider, a healer, and a restorer. But more than the miracles themselves, Elisha's life teaches us about faith. Faith to trust in God's power, no matter the situation. Elisha's life was defined by more than just miracles. It was his unwavering faith and deep connection to God that shaped his influence. Throughout his ministry, Elisha stood as a beacon of wisdom and guidance, sought after by kings and commoners alike. His actions demonstrated humility, obedience, and an unwavering trust in God's power and promises. Elisha didn't shy away from speaking truth to power. He provided counsel during times of war, famine, and political uncertainty. One notable example was during the battle against the Moabites. Through Elisha's faith, God provided water for the armies and caused confusion among the enemy, leading to victory. This moment reminds us that true leadership relies on wisdom from above. Elisha's relationship with God allowed him to guide leaders with clarity and confidence. Elisha's heart was always with the people. He showed compassion to the widow in debt, the Shunammite woman in grief, and the leper seeking healing. His influence wasn't limited to the powerful. It extended to the everyday struggles of ordinary people. This balance, standing with kings yet caring deeply for the vulnerable, is a reminder of Christ's ministry and calls us to emulate such selfless service. Elisha's life teaches us that influence doesn't come from seeking power, but from serving others and trusting God. Whether speaking to kings or comforting the brokenhearted, his faith was the foundation of his influence. The life of Elisha is a treasure trove of spiritual lessons. His story is not just about miracles, but about faith, obedience, and the limitless power of God working through those who surrender to him. Elisha's miracles often highlighted God's provision in times of need. Whether it was multiplying oil for the widow or feeding 100 men with just 20 loaves of bread, Elisha's life reminds us that God is our ultimate provider. Elisha's request for a double portion of Elijah's spirit was bold, yet it reflected his deep desire to serve God effectively. He wasn't asking for personal glory, he was asking for the strength to carry out the work God had set before him. Elisha's ministry was marked by humility and service. He didn't seek recognition or wealth. Instead, he poured his life into serving others, from kings to the poorest widows. Elisha's life is a powerful example of what it means to live fully surrendered to God. He trusted in God's provision, boldly sought his power, and served others selflessly, all while pointing people to the greatness of the God he served.